Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make tiny improvements to your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon. Hello and welcome to this episode. Today I am chatting with my bookkeeper and tax professional, Elizabeth Fiore. She and her husband, Joe, are the owners and operators of Fiore Tax Services. And not only are they amazing at what they do, but they have this awesome niche within the balloon industry. So they work with me and a lot of other balloon professionals. And recently they've become profit first professionals. So if you haven't listened to episode 51 about profit first, go back and listen to that first. And then when you're familiar, dive into this episode, because we don't spend any time reviewing profit first. We kind of add to the conversation. So I hope you enjoy. Let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors and then get into the interview. Hey friends, I know you've heard about ballooncoach.com, but I wanted to take a second to talk about Balloon Boss Summit, which is the in-person event that happens every year in Florida in November. I've been for the past couple of years, and I'll be returning again this year as an instructor. It's one of my favorite events because it gives me time and space to consider my business goals and network and learn from other balloon professionals all around the country. So check it out in the show notes where you're listening, because there are only a few spots left. All right, welcome to this episode, Elizabeth Fiore. You are my bookkeeper of choice, and I know a lot of balloon people use you, which is great because you know all about our industry. And today you are chatting about profit first, which is another strategy that a lot of balloon people know about. I learned about it from a balloon person. So why don't you let us know about you, about your business, and then tips if people are thinking about implementing or already using profit first in their business.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, and we love working with you. So let me give you a little bit of background. So we actually, we have a bookkeeping and tax business, and about a year ago, one of our clients was already doing profit first before she became our client, and she really introduced us to the book. We hadn't read it before, hadn't really heard about it. So I'm like, yes, what is this? What is the system that all of a sudden everybody was really talking about, especially in the balloon industry? And so we read it and we're like, this makes sense. You know, it's not a bookkeeping system. It's not an accounting system. It's a cash flow system. Here's how you budget your money so that you can spend it correctly and you actually have money left over, you know, in profit. Well, actually, you take it first. So
Well, and I think that's one of the questions I get all the time, or one of the things that I personally struggled with for like the first 3 or 4 years of my business. Like, how much am I supposed to pay myself, and how much do I save for taxes, and how much, like, I had no system. So that's why I think I clung to the book, because I was like, I don't even care if it's wrong. It's something. It's better than
Right.
what I'm doing.
It gives you a number. It gives you a percentage, something to shoot for.
Right.
And that's what we realized. And so as we started working with more and more balloon clients, this was pretty widely read in the industry. And we were seeing people implementing it at various degrees of success and various levels of commitment. And because it was something more of how they were managing their cash flow, it didn't really affect us on the bookkeeping side. You know, we still tracked it all, but we thought this is something where we could really help them. You know, the client that introduced us to the book, she said this really saved her business in 2020. Like, she was like, had I not been doing this in 2020, my business would have been gone. It wouldn't have made it. So that to us was like, okay, this could be something really powerful that we could help people with and help them implement it in a way that actually makes sense and that is not like, here, you're left to your own devices. Good luck. Figure it out. So that's where we really started to kind of look into it a little bit further. And then we realized, oh, there's this whole, you know, profit first professionals We can work on a certification for our firm. This can be something that we like really, really niche into and help people in this way, because we're really firm believers in you have to pay yourself in your business. You have to make money, even if it's a small amount, even if it's, not thousands and thousands of dollars every single month. But if you're making money in your business, a little bit should be going to you, because that's what makes it sustainable. That's what allows you as a business owner to say, I can make it through this really hard time, because we all have really hard times in business, because you have something that you can rely on. You have this income coming in. So that's my little soapbox for paying
No,
your
I think
bills.
I think it's great. And I like how you talked about varying degrees, because I definitely like read the book and there were certain things where I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to set up different bank accounts at different banks so that I'm not tempted to take the money. Like, I'm not going to take the money out of my taxes and like go on a
Right.
shopping spree. Like, I have that willpower. So I think there are different degrees of implementation, but it was direction for me. And
Yes.
it saved me this year. Like, I owed at the end of the year, I pay quarterly, but I owed $4,000 in taxes. And it was like a celebration because I had 8 set aside. Like, it was the
Yeah.
first year where I was thrilled at my tax number. I
Right.
remember one year I owed 10 and I had no plan, and it was all the
It
money I
just
had
makes you
set
want to
aside.
cry and
Yeah, I
quit.
did. I absolutely cried. It was all the money that I had set aside to pay myself. But again, I was like afraid to actually use that money because I like didn't really know if it was mine yet. And it just again, I wouldn't say this saved my business, but it definitely gave me a confidence to actually like run my business. But
Right.
another thing that I think you kind of touched on, I personally feel like I'm starting to use professionals now, like
Mhm.
subcontract out like to you. And that's scary when you kind of have a system in place and then you go to a bookkeeper and they're like, this is kind of goofy and like this is ridiculous. We're not really going to do this system. Just do it my way. Because then I'm like, "Oh, okay, sorry, I'm so dumb." So I really like that you guys saw the value in it and saw like, "Well, this is working. Maybe we should, offer this." So,
Right.
um you have some tips for us to share, but
Yes.
also can you just touch on like what does it mean that now you're like official profit first consultants? Like what does that actually mean?
Yeah. So now that we are a member of Profit First Professionals, we will begin offering Profit First assessments and setups, and really helping people get through that initial process, because the initial process can be a little bit scary, a little bit yeah, you have these percentages, but what do they mean? How do you even get to the final numbers? What do you do? So we help people go through that process so that they can then go on from there. So that's really what that means, is now we can say we have a lot more insight into how the execution is supposed to work, versus just the book, which really gives you the theory of this is how you should do it, but leaves it kind of open ended to how you implement it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. So what are some things that we should or should not be doing? Some advice you
Yeah.
have for us?
So we have some good tips here. And the most important tip, I guess I should say, is profit first can't be theory only. So you can't have these numbers written down, but then have all your money in one bank account. You can't say, oh, yeah, I'm going to move all this money around, but then actually I need some more. So I need to take out from my profit account. I need to take out from my owner's comp and put it into operating. So you can't, it has to be something that you live and actually like walk the walk, because otherwise human behavior will set in. And that's really the theory behind having the different bank accounts, and like you were saying, having the willpower is, instead of working against human behavior, you're working with it and saying, here, as a human being, this is what I'm likely to do, which is to check my bank account to see if I have enough money to spend on XYZ. And if I don't have enough money, I will take from this other pot of money so that I can continue to run my business. But you don't want to do that. You want to actually have it be in the separate bank account. If you find that you aren't able to not touch your tax accounts, put it in a separate bank. So it really is about how do you make it work in a real sense, not just on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the bank account thing, I read the book so long ago and I've been doing this for so long, but I kind of forgot that, yeah, it used to be like I'd log into my bank account. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have $8,000 in my business account.
Like,
I'm awesome.
woo!
Right. But like realistically, I hadn't paid taxes yet. I
Right,
had those jobs were all prepaid. Like I hadn't actually purchased the balloons. I hadn't paid myself anyway. It was just like this giant slush fund. And I was
right.
like, I
It's
think that's good.
misleading.
Yeah. Yeah. So now looking and being like, okay, like I have $4,000 in operating. Like that's pretty tight because like I'm about to do a $2,000 order and I have to pay my subcontractors and I have to like it actually puts the pressure on. And that's a whole nother part of the book about the human behavior
Yes.
that it's like when you have less money, you spend less money in a good way. Like
Yes.
you
Yeah.
get crafty and thrifty and but when you have this big $8,000 lump sum, you feel like, yeah, I'll splurge on those extra balloons I don't really need. And
Right.
um so yeah, I kind of forgot all about that human behavior element because I've been doing it for so long and
Hmm.
you really do like catch a groove. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like a lot of effort. But yeah, you have to do it.
And the thing is, it's not, it happens to all of us. Like, we
Mhm.
all operate that way, you know? I do the same thing. If I were to look at my bank account and see a bunch of money, I'm like, oh, I can take that work trip. I can do these things. When in reality, if it's all together, no, you can't.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to, strip and save a little bit more to be able to comfortably afford it.
Yeah, and also so I mentioned in the intro, i- if you don't know what Profit First is at all, this is probably sounding like gibberish. So go back to the Profit First episode linked in the show notes and listen to that first because in that episode I explain like what the bank accounts are and what the buckets are and kind of how it works. And really, you should just buy the book. It's like $15 on Amazon. It's awesome. But listen to that episode first, then come back because this is more like actually if you know what's going on and you use Profit First, these tips are great.
Yes, absolutely. And that episode that you did on Profit First was golden. So, highly recommend. My second tip is to actually start slowly. So, the percentages that you see in the book are targets. They're not hard and fast. And then it doesn't mean that if you start today, you have to be at those percentages tomorrow. And that's where people get a little bit tripped up because they think, how could I possibly get to 50% owner's comp? How can I possibly get to 10% profit? Well, if you do it all at once, you're going to set yourself up for failure because then you really aren't going to have time to slowly work your expenses down and adjust your business to those levels. So even if you can do 1% in profit as you get started, that builds the habit that creates a small victory that you can celebrate. Like now you actually have this money set aside that you didn't have before. But it also gives you a really good habit to build upon so that you can get to that 10% or even more, and the same thing for owner's comp. You don't have to pay yourself the 50% right away. You can work up to that.
So I just have a question just because you work with a lot of balloon people. Is that 50%, is that doable? I mean, I pay myself 50%. Anytime I make a sale, 50% of that money goes directly into my owner's comp account. But I also do everything myself for the most part. That's not really true. Now I hire you to do my bookkeeping. I have someone who helps me with my emails. I have someone that cleans my shop. So I might have to readjust my numbers a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. But for the last year or two, that 50% has been pretty attainable. Is that realistic for like a larger company or a smaller company or balloons in general, just because we have so much material costs? Like, is that 50% pay attainable?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as, based on actually what Mike McAllowitz says is they did a study of like the largest corporations and the percentages that he provides for those different. Now there's different percentages as you get larger, and it does go slightly down for the owner's comp. That's what the big massive companies are doing. So if the big massive companies can do it and a one woman shop can do it, like you, everyone in between can do it to some level. Now, keep in mind, too, if you have multiple owners, if you have, different business structures, there's going to be slight differences, but the spirit of it, of that being the 50% after you have taken out material costs, that should be a really good target, especially for solopreneurs, people that are just one person, don't necessarily have a staff.
Yeah,
And,
and oh, sorry, go ahead.
I will say, for it goes exactly to what you said, where you get crafty. When you have less money to spend, you get really creative with how you spend that money. And that also is the key. If you always have kind of not unlimited, but this wavering line of how much you can spend, you're always going to choose the easy, fast, more expensive method. That's just everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a whole like a little blurb in the book, and it really shifted my thinking about how I can't even remember, they worked in like a leather factory, something super random.
Yeah.
And like it was like, oh, but no one in the industry can hit these margins. Like no one can do this. And he was like, for him, instead of being like, oh, well, then we won't either. It was like, well, let's invent a thing, a machine that does it at these margins. And like he basically changed his whole industry. So I love thinking
Right.
that like big picture
Yeah.
thinking too, like, oh, there's no way you can offer helium at this price. It's like, well, let's figure out a way to do that with air. Something just like
Right.
totally different than what the easy option is.
Right. Absolutely. I love that leather story too, because now he has patented that method that he used, and it completely changed the game. I mean, he took something that was seemingly this huge barrier and turned it into not just a profitable thing for his business, but now like something that is really unique.
Right, like a huge revenue stream that never even existed. Oh gosh,
Exactly.
we're having a piano concert for my daughter in the background. I apologize.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so tip number 3, and this is one that I really want to drive home, and I know we've kind of talked about it in, throughout our conversation, but if your operating expenses, if you find that you're doing these percentages and month after month, you're having to move money into your operating expenses, you're having to kind of make up the difference and, robbing Peter to pay Paul, that is the moment. It's not about profit first at that point. It's about your business and your prices. So that is like you should hear all the alarm bells going off and saying, okay, I need to dig deeper. Because at that point, you're just playing a shell game. You're just moving money around, really just to appease yourself. But it's time to dig down deep, look at your pricing. Are you pricing for profit? Are you really making money at a decent margin on every single product that you're selling? Do you need all of those subscriptions? Do you need all of that staff? So you might, and there's certain things that you absolutely have to have, but you won't know until you do that deep dive. And you can cut the fluff and keep the things that are actually going to be good for your business, that help move your business forward. There's always fluff to be cut.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, if people are listening and you're not like a profit first person and you're like kind of confused what we're talking about, I think the 2 takeaways from this episode, it's like, first of all, imagine if starting tomorrow you paid yourself 50% of every dollar that came in. And what you just mentioned about is like the other big thing. I think there's so many people that think their business is doing great because they're
Mm-hmm.
not paying themselves anything. So it's
Right.
like, it's really easy to look like you have a great thriving business when you have no expenses because
At
nobody's
all.
getting paid. Yeah, it's like, yeah, every business would be great if all of your employees were free labor. Like, so I think if you're not paying yourself, and that's kind of the whole
Right.
point of this whole profit first. It's like paying yourself first and figuring out how to run your business with the rest. And if you can't do that, like you just said, that's not the system's fault. There's something in your business that's not working.
Yeah, that you need to look into. And actually, one of the things that Mike McElwood says that I love is, you are your rockstar employee. If you had an employee that worked on in the evenings and on weekends and always took client calls and was your best salesperson and, did all of your setups and all of your deliveries. And then you were like, oh, but I want you to work for free. No, like you would compensate a rockstar employee at rockstar prices and salary. So you should be doing the same thing for yourself. You are your business rockstar employee.
Yeah,
Even if
I
you
love
just
it. I love everything he does. And I also like that he has this mentality of kind of like the scrappy nature, or like you
yes.
probably don't need a fleet of delivery vans, or like in his situation it was like he didn't need an office and like an Audi. And like
Right.
you don't need all these things that you think are your, important, because right now I'm on this binge of books that's kind of like the other end of the spectrum, like
Mhm.
take scary steps and make a big purchase and
Right.
splurge and
It'll
slow.
come to you.
Exactly. So there are these different kind of ends of the spectrum, and I'm definitely somewhere in the middle. But I like that he is kind of the frugal advocate of
Mhm.
like you don't always need that big warehouse. You don't need a third van. You don't need 5 employees. You don't necessarily need all this stuff. I
Right.
like to think that I'm like a little bit proof of that. I think I work a lot. I don't think everyone wants to do as much hands-on stuff as I do, but I run like a decently sized small business,
Yeah.
um, without, I don't need 5 employees. I don't need a second van. I don't need all of that stuff. So there are ways to kind of work around it. And I like that he's kind of the champion for that strategy.
Yeah. And I think too, I'm with you. Like I love the woo and I love manifestation stuff. And I also love the frugal side. And I fall somewhere in the middle of like practicality and also sure treat yourself. And the reality is everyone's goals are different. Everyone's goals for what they want their business to bring into their life, they're all different. Some people, that Audi might be everything that they've ever wanted and so they want to get it. Okay, fine, you do you. But if your goal is to have a certain amount of money each month for your family so that you can budget, so that you can take vacations, then that's how then profit first is more your speed of let's save where we can and let's be frugal where we can so we can take those more lavish vacations with family.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and how can people actually work with you? You're my bookkeeper, you and Joe. And it's amazing. It's kind of the only area of my business where I'm like absolutely hands off. You probably wish I was a little bit more hands on.
No, we love working with you.
I'm just like, oh, I don't know. So I've been able to hand that completely over to you. But you have different packages, and now you have like kind of this profit first onboarding. It sounds like, where can listeners get in touch with you, and what can you offer them to help?
Yeah. So you can always find me on social, especially on Instagram at Fiore Tax Services, or our website, FioreTaxServices.com. And we offer pretty much from like DIY. If you just need some training and you want to get started with a QuickBooks account, we offer like a really nice little startup package. And all the way to we completely take it on just like you hand it over. We have, check-ins every month so that you are aware and know exactly what's going on. So we run the whole gamut for if people are like, help me, I need your information right away. They can direct message me on Instagram or fill out the form on our website and we can schedule a strategy call. Usually during those strategy calls, we figure out where they are in their business, where they're looking to go, and how we can help them, or if somebody else, if we recommend a different route, we let them know that too. And I can't remember what other questions.
I'll fill in one here. We're both going to be at Balloon Boss Summit, right? You're coming back?
Yes, yes. And we're actually going to we're going to present at Balloon Boss Summit this year, so
Oh,
I'm super
good.
excited about that. I have a feeling it'll probably be somewhere in this realm of topics that we end up talking about. And we're also planning to do a workshop that's going to be a profit first specific workshop online. so that anybody can join. And that'll be probably in July. So we'll put more information out about that as it comes, but it'll probably be more of how to get started with Profit First and how to implement it, all of that good stuff.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, and I'll just do another little mini plug for Summit. I'll be there too. I'm teaching. It's Summit's awesome because
It's awesome.
it's like an in-person, for me, it's like my own little retreat. Like I really clear my schedule. So I'm not like trying to take business calls during the week. It's in Florida. It's lovely. And you can really go and like, I don't know, the November timing I really like. It gets me like amped for the new year and you kind of
Mm-hmm.
can work on everything. So that's a balloon coach event. I will link that in the show notes if you're interested in attending, but it is in person, which I love. I think there's something special about being
Yeah.
in person with a group of people, being able to like ask you questions face to face. I know we were in some of the same like workshop rooms last year. I'll be there representing 17 hats, but it's a great week. But cool. I will link your info in the show notes so that people can get in touch with you quickly and easily. And thank you so
Perfect.
much.
Thank you. This was so much fun, and thanks for having me.
If you've listened to any episodes of this podcast, you know that I think the most important part of running a balloon business is the customer experience. I like making it easy for my customers to purchase from me and pay me. I like making the process clear, and I like being really approachable and easy to talk to, which is why as a customer, I love receiving that same treatment when I shop for balloons. I love having a party wholesale because they take care of me as their client. They always have recommendations. They treat me with respect. They know the industry, and they make it easy for me to shop and pay. So if you are in need of a balloon distributor or just want to check them out, click the link in the show notes and let them know that the Bright Balloon sent you. Thanks for joining me in this week's episode. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light in a few minutes or less. If you wish there were more episodes, you are in luck. You can join us in our Patreon group for our monthly book club. I record weekly episodes guiding you through a different self-development book each month. For as little as $3 a month, you can join more than 50 other balloon business owners in our private group. Click the link in the show notes to join us. So many of you have reached out and told me how the podcast has changed your business, and I love hearing those stories. But you might be ready to take things to the next level. If that's you, you should check out the laser-focused Solopreneur course where I walk you through more than 2 hours of video content showing exactly how I run my business as a solopreneur. I run a 6-figure balloon business, I work a full-time job, I have a toddler, and I produce this podcast weekly. And it's not because I'm more efficient than anybody else, it's just because I apply this laser-focused framework to every decision that I make. If you're struggling with work-life balance, figuring out how to grow your business in a manageable way, and feeling like there just aren't enough hours in the day, this course is for you. Check it out using the link in the show notes.